Mornings with Gary Adshead on Perth 6PR.
Yeah, I hope you've still got your seatbelt strapped on because my next guest is Paul Litherland. And Paul Litherland is a former police officer. You've heard him on this program talking about online safety, which is the field that he dedicates his life to now in terms of young people and the threat that they are facing in terms of what's out there online, who's out there online, and what they can do about it. But he's written a book, Paul has. It's called Finding My Way Out of the Darkness, and he joins me now. G'day, Paul.
Gary, great to chat to you again.
Mate, you really have put it all out there in this book. In some ways, in some areas, difficult to read. Why? Why did you do it?
I just felt I needed to sort of release a lot of the issues I was still facing in my life. Working with teenagers, mentoring people for many, many years these days, I kept sharing my journey with them, people very close to me, and I kept getting told more and more, Paul, you need to tell your story.
I mean, it's a cliche question, but it's been obviously quite cathartic for you, I take it, to actually to put all of those words onto paper. Yeah,
for sure. And I never even thought of doing this, but I've been a coach and mentor for many, many years. And I was coaching out at South Fremantle, and our property guy who I didn't know at the time was actually a co-writer and an author himself. And we just started talking police worries one training session, and he goes, oh, wow, let's chat about a book. And then when we got into the rest of this stuff, he goes, it needs to be told.
All right. Well, the rest of the stuff, folks, if you're wondering, is about your childhood and your upbringing. And I'll ask you, what can you sort of go back to when you can first remember what it was like living in an environment with an abusive and alcoholic father who indeed was a police officer himself? Can you remember the first time that you know?
Wow, it is very difficult to find memories sort of beyond or before when I was about 9 or 10 years of age, Gary. So it was a very tumultuous time, and I know I've blocked a lot of that out. But my first clear memories were about 9 years of age in Albany, and the violence was perpetrated on me and my mum, and of course what we saw.
How did it used to come about, as you were a child, and particularly for your mum, of course, but how did it come about? Was it just spontaneous? Could you see it coming?
Yes and no. No. At times, yes, depending on whether my father had come home drunk or you could sense things coming. It was very, very tense around the house for many, many years. But sometimes, to be sporadic and it'd just be straight fly off the handle, whereas other times, you'd see it coming and it'd build up, and that's when I'd usually escape, jump on the bike and go.
But was there a sense of normality about it in your life then, or not?
Yeah, 100%. And that was a shame. It's a shame to say that. And domestic violence was really behind closed doors in those days, especially from a police family.
Do you know what? I'm going to say this now, because domestic violence, I was talking to the police commissioner the other day, is spiking. Okay, so we talk about domestic violence now like we've never done before. Now, is that the reason it's spiking? Is it because it's being more reported, do you think?
Yeah.
Do you? I mean,
I think awareness is so much stronger. It's like what I do in regards to cyber safety. The more you get education out there, the more you become or share awareness. People are going to go, you know what, I need to speak up. So to be honest with you, I don't believe there's probably more domestic violence as such. It's always going to be a facet of society, sadly. What I do see is the increase in reporting, because people have got a voice now. People are being pushed to get a voice, and that's one massive positive which is coming out of education.
How often did you fear for your mum, Patricia, in terms of what was going to happen to her?
Daily. There were times where I'd sneak home from school, especially at high school, where you'd come home just to see if she was all right, because there were times where I was worried she was going to take her own life. That really, really stuck with me for so long, especially through my teens. But as a young fella, when Dad was still at home with us, it was constant, absolutely constant.
So how did she get through it?
To this day, I don't know. I mean, Mum's been gone for 13 years now, and that's what haunted me the most, Gary, writing this book and looking back on my past. How the hell did Mum get through it? And I don't know. I don't know.
Because out of interest, were there a group of people, family or whatever, around that knew and would always help, or was it just like your secret? Was it your?
No, it was just ours. Just ours. We were country. Dad was a country copper, so we were away from Perth. So we were Albany, Wundowie, Broome, Mount Barker, Collie. So that away from home, from Mum having a base in where her parents were in Morley, and my father's parents were also in Morley, she was on her own. We were on our own, and again, there were no support networks really in those days. So yeah, it was just something was kept behind doors.
When you were a young copper, so you'd come out of the academy, and I was reading that you were, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're in a car and someone starts telling you stories about your dad and the lengths he would go to stop your mum being able to ever raise alarm bells about what was going on inside your house.
Yes.
Just explain that.
Especially at country locations. I mean, Mum was suffering quite significantly from mental health issues, not because she had a disability or anything like that. It's just she was dealing with the impacts of domestic violence. So every now and again when my father would be going off his tree and smashing the house up, she'd ring the police and say, look, can you come and get John? Okay, he's smashing the place up and he's harming us. And she'd have police officers hang up on her. No, sorry, we can't come out. We've got to work with John. And then later on in life, when I was a police officer myself, I spoke with an officer who worked with my father, and he you could see the shock in his face when I told him about my youth. And he said, you know what, your dad would come in and say, if Patricia rings, just hang up because she's going through mental health issues and she's not taking her medication, so John will sort it out.
Did you, out of interest, I mean, people listening to this will be fascinated to know, did you ever get to confront him about all of this?
No, mate, no.
Never?
I did write him a letter once, and there's an interesting part of the book there where he sort of cracked the poops at that, but I just didn't want to speak to my father, and the damage he'd caused, and even to this day, I mean, I'm 52 and I'm still struggling, and I'm a confident person, and I deal so much with society and supporting in what I do, but there's times where people the closest to me go, Paul, you're still struggling, mate, and yeah, it's difficult.
I won't dwell on it, but before we go to a break, what your father did as a police officer, I mean, I'm not saying that when you're a police officer you shouldn't do anything or you don't do anything bad, because everyone's everyone. Should he have been charged, arrested, charged?
Oh yeah, and in a modern world, we wouldn't accept that, and again, it's conflicting for me, Gary, because I was a serving police officer for 20 years, well decorated, very well respected, and I came from someone who was a different copper, and policing was different in those days, and the agency was different, and everything was different. But now, I mean, there was still some amazing police officers who helped our family, especially during our escape finally, and it's important for me that I don't tarnish the agency.
Yeah.
But like every industry, there's idiots. Every industry, there's people who are destroying those reputations. So, yeah, it was just sadly the world we were in those days.
I might have to ask you how you escaped when you talked about the escape after this. Paul Litherland is my guest. He's written a book. It's called Finding My Way Out of the Darkness. We'll get into some of the areas as to how he's pushed on from that through being a police officer into what he does now after this. It's 11:15.
On Perth 6PR, this is Gary Adshead.
All right. Now, we'll just there's a couple of things that I think you're happy to talk about, Paul. I mean, obviously, your father took it to a level in terms of his violence and so on that he did try to take your mother's life, didn't he?
Yeah. And that's a pretty daunting and I suppose brutal passage in the book, which was a pivotal moment in our life, and it changed me. It broke me realistically as a child, unfortunately.
How old were you when he literally tried to hang
I was 6. Yeah, and
you saw that?
Yeah, that was a difficult moment, very difficult moment, because we feared the repercussions of what would happen if we tried to help Mum, But luckily, thank God, we made that decision to do it.
You went to the shed and so on. I won't go into all the detail of it, but that was the moment. Is that the time when you escaped, as you put it? Is that the time after, soon after that it was over?
No, Mum was sadly sort of promised this, promised that, and with involvement with the family, and no one knew about that day. No one knew about that day. Again, we kept it hidden. We kept it quiet. So we moved then from Morley to Albany, and with the hope of a change, but that promise were never fulfilled. So that's when we decided to finally.
I didn't realise the timeline was before you moved to the country that had happened.
Yeah.
I don't know how you've sort of got through, let alone then go on to become a police officer. Can I just ask you what drove you to do that? You know, you'd seen your father as a police officer. It wasn't the greatest role model, was it?
No, and I wanted to make a difference. I for years, and I'll be honest with you, mate, I never wanted to be a cop. I thought, no way in the world. And when I said to my wife, Estelle, I'm thinking of joining, she goes, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to be like your old man? And I thought, no, I'm going to break the mold. I want to change that. It was almost like a fight with myself to go, I need to change my past almost to go get better. And I think I did that quite well.
Did you lock up anyone for domestic violence?
Oh, yeah. One of my first permanent station was at Kwinana, which was pretty full on in those days. And one of the first jobs I went to was a male taking to his wife with a golf club. And it worried me that day because I grabbed the golf club off him, and I was visualising hitting him with it, but I didn't, obviously. And but what broke me about that one was as we were taking the mum to hospital, the wife to hospital, she says, I can't find my son. Where's my son? And we looked through the whole house, and we went out to the back shed, and there's this little fella, he's only 5 or 6, sitting. Oh, sorry, mate.
Jeepers.
He was sitting in the shed, and I just saw myself. And that it was hard. It was hard to deal with situations like that. Very difficult.
But you're glad you've done what you've done in terms of being able to make a difference.
And that's what I mean. And for me, and even from that first day joining the police to now, to Surf Online Safe, and I mean to hear Josh talk before I came in, and I mean I've been mentoring Aboriginal youth for 22 years, and to see people like that who are making a difference, it's so important. It's so important to get into the lives of those who are going through hell, just to let them know I'm here. I just wanted to be the dad to my kids that I never had, and that sounds strange, but especially with my cyber safety stuff, I mean, there's 500,000 kids I speak to. I just want to help them out.
Hey, you, I think that probably the first time I met you would have been at the Sofia Rodriguez shoe, the tragedy of that young girl so brutally murdered in the shopping centre in the southern suburbs. You became very close to the family. There was obviously a connection there already, but you literally became their sort of their buffer between media, between police, between everyone.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
It was,
because the details of that case still send a shiver down my spine.
Yeah, and I mean that's a case that shocked the nation. And for me, I just wanted to. I mean, I reached out to Sophie's dad and said, look, just if you need a hand with anything, I'm here. They were a very shy family, very quiet family, and they were thrown into the spotlight. So I just wanted to assist them there, and the whole healing side of that was important to me, and to assist where I can, and I was very proud to be able to offer them that opportunity.
Out of interest, do you keep in touch? How are they going?
Yeah, we touch base regularly. It was Sophia's birthday. She would have been 26 on the 11th of the 11th.
Both of us feel old.
Yeah. So it's so we do speak regularly.
All right. So for people that aren't aware, you are heavily involved in online safety. So has that come from something that you did in your police career mainly? Is that where it comes from, or is it a sort of someone that you knew got into trouble that sort of sparked you into it?
No, I coincidentally, again, I was involved in a crash when I was a copper. I was run over on the freeway, very seriously injured, almost killed. And unfortunately, as a result of that, I had to be non-operational. So instead of driving a car, I had to drive a desk. And just coincidentally, I had a mate who was working at Tech Crime, and I said, I need a non-op spot. And he goes, mate, we'll have you here. So 2 weeks later, I was at Tech Crime, part of the computer crime division, and 6 years later, I left tech crime and the police because I just got frustrated with how poorly kids were being protected online, or all victims were being protected online, and Surf Online Safe was born around 2013.
It's never going to end that work, is it?
No.
It's just not.
No.
I mean, from time to time I see examples of what's being put out there. I don't even necessarily mean by the perpetrators. I mean by kids that want to be actively out there on TikTok and so on, and sort of acting like they're 21 when they're really just 13 and 14 years of age, and it scares me. That they don't realise who they're really supplying to. What's going on there? I don't know how you change that, because it's like this. It's cool. It's cool. And
for me, it's the playgrounds. Yes, my education is based on risk and how we can minimise risk, and we've got to try and do that. But what I'm pushing for now is to get the networks to get better at how they're designed. Everything in the physical world has rules, but the internet has failed to keep up with that. And we spoke with Julianne Sprague only recently about that. So it's shifting the culture. Get the playgrounds designed better, and that's what my fight continues to do now.
All right, and that's of course through Surf Online Safe. All right, well, if people want, like they've probably heard your story, and a lot of people might go, well, I can relate to that, and I wouldn't mind reading more and more detail about what Paul's prepared to tell everyone. How do they go about getting the book? It's Finding My Way Out of the Darkness.
Okay, so I've got a launch coming up this Sunday. So if people visit my website, litherland.com.au, they can come along to the launch on Sunday from 2:30 onwards, or the book will be up for sale as of the 30th of this month, so 30th of November. Again, visit my website, click on the links, and you'll be able to purchase.
Even just Googling Finding My Way Out of the Darkness, or your name, Paul Litherland.
100%.
Hey, mate, thanks very much for coming in and sharing what's a difficult story, but I think it sounds like it's done you some good to put it all down on paper as well.
Good work. Thanks, Gary.
Good on you, mate. Paul Litherland there, 4 minutes to 11.
Mornings with Gary Adshead on Perth 6PR.